Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Marketing with Lynn. I'm sorry we're a little bit late, but this is the first time that I'm actually doing the show from home, and I've got Dani up in the hills and I've got Russell in Mount Lawley and trying to make it all work and make sure everybody could hear everybody. Did take a little bit of jiggery-pokery, so thanks for bearing with us, and thanks for Dani and Russell for putting up with I can't hear you, I can't see you, all that sort of conversation. Dani, welcome to Midday Marketing. It's awesome to have you on the show. I'm not going to pronounce your surname because like you, like myself, I've got a surname that is always pronounced incorrectly. So, Dani, would you mind just coming on, Dani's from Resources Hub and Resourceful Women, and Dani's been working in recruitment for, I won't say how many, but let's say over 20 years, and mining recruitment specifically. So, Dani, welcome to the show. Can you just give my listeners a bit of a rundown of your CV?
Sure. How long have we got? Sorry, my name's Dani Tarmady and I am the owner of the Resources Hub and Resourceful Women and another consultancy, EmergeSafe. Like Lynn mentioned, I've been in mining for 26 plus years. I was working fly in, fly out, 13 weeks away, 3 weeks home when I was 21 years of age, and that sort of, that cemented my love for that industry and that kind of lifestyle. And then I went back to mining in 1998 when I met my husband in a small mining town, and I was contracting through a recruitment company on site. And when I had my first son in 1999, that particular recruitment company asked if I wanted to become a recruitment consultant living in a small mining town called Pannawonica, and I could basically work remotely, have Jake at home, do all the fun things that I needed to do. I could also work out on site when my husband was home. Wasn't my husband at the time. And yeah, that's sort of how I got into the industry. So really I've been involved in career development, recruitment, talent management for around about 21 plus years.
Awesome. So we're actually going to cover quite a few topics with Dani today, but we're going to start because obviously right now there are a lot of people that have just lost their jobs. There's a lot of people whose jobs have been put on ice, just waiting for when retail sector and other sectors start back up again, hospitality. But, I'm sure there's quite a few people out there now that are sort of spending a bit of time navel gazing, going, what's next? Is this really what I want to be doing? Whichever industry they're working in, whether it's recruitment, hospitality, retail, mining. But you do this great package with Harrison's. Could you just talk to me a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so Harrison Assessments is a behavioural profiling tool that came into my life about 6 years ago, and I could see how it could be utilised with the different types of clients that we have within the Resources Hub. So we have individual candidates who are looking for job opportunities. We have career clients who might want to transition into a new industry, and or they might just, they might be at that stage where they just simply don't know what sort of role they'd be good at. And then we can use it for companies in a talent management perspective as far as succession planning, talent development, looking at the types of behaviours that sit within teams and how, that works in organisations. So, yeah, about 6+ years ago, I started looking into Harrison and being trained in Harrison. And then last year, I finally became internationally qualified to deliver the reports and debriefing that my clients need and having a greater understanding. So that was a week in Adelaide of pretty intense training just the year before with a whole heap of people, because Harrison's used internationally. So it's used a lot with large organisations like Boeing and Coca-Cola and companies like that. But I could see the benefits that it could have, like I said, for individuals as well as for recruitment purposes and for talent development.
So as an individual, I would come to you, I would sit some form of online testing, I'm assuming. And then from there you would sort of what happens, like? Yeah,
sure. So from a career development perspective, and a person comes to me and they get sent a link to the Harrison site or to their emails, and it's a 25-minute online questionnaire.
Yeah.
And it can basically ascertain the types of industries and the types of roles that your behaviours, your likes and dislikes are most suited to. So to give you a bit of an example, our 14-year-old son, Tane, was diagnosed with dyslexia and dyscalculus, and it took 14 years for that diagnosis to take place. So we really needed to sort of get him into the mindset of thinking about what sort of career pathways he was going to be suited to, because obviously he had these learning disabilities, for want of a better word, that he sort of needed to work out where he was going to go from there. So I put him through Harrison soon after his diagnosis, and it came up with a whole heap of really interesting career pathways, quite blue-collar pathways, and things that were quite relatable to his background of growing up in mining towns and bits and pieces. Yeah. In the end, carpentry was one of the ones that he was most suited to, and he ended up doing a Cert 2 in carpentry and a Cert 3 in business at a vet high school that we also sent our eldest son, Jake, to. He did boiler making. Tane, I'm not sure if he's going to stick with carpentry, but it was a really good sort of grounding for him at the ages of 16 and 17. He wasn't bored because he was working in a vet situation, vocational education training within high school. So it kind of gives people from all different levels, all different ages. I mean, the oldest guy that I've ever put through Harrison was 67 years of age, and he'd come from a teaching background. And I kind of had an idea after sitting down with him what I thought he was most suited to, and it turns out that Harrison kind of, knocked it on the head, and I was pretty much right. But it just kind of gives clarity over some things. And it also, I think, allows you to broaden your ideas of careers that are out there as well. Sometimes you don't realise, I had an employee that worked for me, and she wanted to be a chemical engineer, and she did 14 months of her uni degree and absolutely hated it, and she's swapped across to psychology, and now she's happy as, and it's just so suited to her psychology. So again, flips and 20.
One of my best mates from high school got a fourth in the state for her TE results. Got in, did 3 years of science. No, did a year of science engineering, didn't like it, moved to med, did 3 years of med, decided she didn't like that, and then moved to resources engineering and friggin' loved it. Yeah, I mean, I guess one of my fears, though, would be like, there's a lot of people, I think, that kind of fall into their career, for want of a better description.
I do.
And, you just find that you're doing it. You think it suits your personality. I mean, even people like that, is it still a good idea to come and see you for these sorts of, and just see if that's really what you should be doing?
Yeah, I think people who love their careers, I always say, if you love what you do what you love and love what you do. Like, that's my little motto. But sometimes people find it really difficult to find what that is. I mean, my husband started life as a chef and then was a mobile plant operator and got into emergency response training, and then got offered a role in emergency response in a mining company, and then did a degree in emergency management, and now runs 2 sites and has about 40 reports. So who would have thought when he was 15 going to be a chef going to this type of a position, And he did have a little bit of a moment sort of 18 months ago where he thought he wanted another career change, and I was all in for that, because I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, you've got to be happy. Yeah. But then he's kind of knocked that on the head again now, and I think he realises that he's really good in the space that he's in. But if he wants to take up a hobby, he built a big bookshelf yesterday, so he's on 3 months old, so anything's possible.
Well, the carpentry from the sun could actually come in quite handy then.
Absolutely.
I'm going to apologise, but it seems like my next door neighbour started vacuuming. So if you do hear any vacuuming sounds in the background, I'm going to apologise. Okay. All right, look, Dani, that's great. So look, if anybody's interested in doing one of these Harrison sessions with Dani, on my LinkedIn and on my Facebook page, I'll definitely have links through to Dani so you can contact her directly if that's something that you're interested in doing. But we're going to move on now to talking about again, moving on from people that are now, they've either lost their job or they're looking at their CV and their cover letter. Mm-hmm. So let's tackle those first before we move on to some of the other things. What's some of the things that people should be looking at in regards to their CV? So
gone are the days where you have one CV and you utilise that in its entirety. It really needs to be a fluid document, and it needs to be relatable to the types of roles and industries that you're applying for, especially if you're making a bit of a shift to a new industry and or a somewhat slightly different industry to what you're in. So you really need to look at, when you're looking at a job ad, you really need to pinpoint the duties and responsibilities and the experience that you have, and be able to market yourself in such a way that you will be seen, especially in this current market where there are going to be thousands of job applications coming through the door. You know, this is your marketing tool. This is what sells you, and that's why it needs to change and be different generally for most applications that you make. So
how much should a CV be? Like, how many pages should a CV be?
So, you know, people say 2 pages, 4 pages. I would say a maximum of 4 pages generally.
Yeah.
It really needs to have an introduction and objective, which is your marketing spiel. That's what, you know, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is how I can relate to the positions that I'm applying for or the industry that I'm applying for. Then, you know, details around relevant qualifications, certificates, if you're in mining, certain, you know, client inductions, things like that. And, you know, obviously if you're in mining too, your experience with OH&S, because that's pretty major in our industry, in all heavy industries, not just heavy industries. So, yeah, so you really need to sort of look at the ad in its entirety. And the way I say to my clients to strip it out is sort of get 3 different coloured highlighter pens. And pink is like you can do it standing on your head. So you highlight everything in the ad that you can do, like without any drama at all. And then orange is, yep, you feel comfortable doing that, or you have had some experience with it, and you feel that you would be able to do that in this particular position. And then yellow is, yep, I have got some experience in it. And the rest of it, just leave it blank. Don't relate your career docs, meaning your CV and your cover letter, to those particular responsibilities if you have no experience in it. So you've really got to showcase and highlight what your abilities are.
So what happens for people that are now sort of going, actually, I want a bit of a career change? So they've come to see you, they've come to Harrison's, they've done this, and they've spent, you know, the last 5-10 years working in retail or whatever, but they really want to get into HR, or, you know, what sort of advice would you give people if they are trying to, and I hate this word right now, but pivot their career?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's probably, for a lot of people, it's going to be a really good time to do that, to transition their career, but for many, it's not going to be. And that's purely based on, you know, what type of experience. I mean, everybody has different experience, different qualifications. Some, like you just mentioned, your girlfriend who must love university. I mean, I can't stand walking on a university ground. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. But it doesn't mean to say that I haven't studied. And I didn't start studying until I was sort of 36 or 37 years of age. You know, I hadn't studied since high school. But at the time, it was the right timing for me too. So it really depends on a whole heap of different things. It depends on the individual, it depends on their circumstances, depends on whether or not they have, you know, the time and the money to be able to invest in themselves as well. Because sometimes right now it's going to be a case of they just want to put food on the table. And we saw this in 2013 through to 2016, where we saw a lot of resource industry people take up short-term contracts and shut down roles because purely they just had to be paying for their mortgage and putting food on the table. And a lot of the luxuries that so many of us in the mining and resources industry in particular had were null and void anymore. You know, we didn't need the jet skis, we didn't need the zooped up utes every 3 years, we didn't need all that fun stuff. And I think we're going to see that change. I think we're going to see more of a change this time. But from a redundant perspective as well, if people have been made redundant and they've been given a redundancy pay, then I suggest that they also seek financial advice on what to do with that, and, you know, make sure that it works in their best favour. Yeah,
that's really good advice. All right, so we're now just going to move back to move on a bit from the whole CV covering letter. Now talking about LinkedIn and social media. I mean, obviously the number one rule with LinkedIn is actually having a photo on there.
A decent photo, not one of you in your bikini.
Yes.
Because you and I wouldn't do that, Lynn.
No, mate, I've never worn a bikini in my life. So what's some of the things that people need to have on their LinkedIn profile?
Well, to start with, a LinkedIn profile is your online CV. It's your online, well, originally, I don't know if you know how LinkedIn sort of came about, but it was a business-to-business social media platform. So it was for people sort of to, I suppose, gain a network outside of their existing network, and to to try and do business with each other. And then it's become this beast of itself, really. I mean, it's even got its own training arm in there through Linda, which was bought out a few years ago. So LinkedIn is really a place where you need to, again, you need to showcase your skills and abilities. You need to have on there things such as your certificates, your qualifications, because how LinkedIn works in comparison to, say, just sending a CV through to a database, is that recruiters and hiring managers can find you based on how good your LinkedIn profile is. And when I say that, it means that if you have all these keywords, like at the moment we're recruiting for a particular diesel fitter in Africa, but they must have a certain machine work and surface miner machine experience. So I can't look at other diesel fitters for this particular role because it's purely, this position and this client requires that. So we will go in and do searches, not just in LinkedIn, but in other jobs boards and algorithm boards that I'll explain a bit later. And we'll reach out to those particular candidates and say, hey, listen, we've got these opportunities. If you're interested in finding more, get in contact with the team. If you're not on LinkedIn, we can't find you.
Yep.
Recruiters and hiring managers can't find you. It's a really awesome way to keep in contact with your network that you've been a part of throughout your career as well. Because a lot of the time too, don't forget that positions are often found through your network and not necessarily through a jobs board or through actually applying. It's through having a conversation with someone and saying, oh, hey, listen, I'm interested in my new enviroscience role. What have you got going, or who do you know is looking? Yeah. And that's how a lot of employment happens.
All right. So how often do recruiters look at Facebook, Instagram?
Quite often, especially, depending on a lot of the time, I mean, I'm speaking from my team in particular, but we would probably, before we put a candidate through to a client, we would definitely try and find out as much information around their social media behaviours as possible, because at the end of the day, we want to find the best fit for the candidate and the client, but anyone can tell you anything on a sheet of paper, but then you can find out a whole heap more through social media as well.
So the drunken photos, the people photos in bikinis, like just try to keep it to a minimum, or
Yeah, look, you still got to have a life, don't you? Yeah. I personally believe that Facebook is a personal platform. LinkedIn is a professional platform. So don't be putting the photos of your jet skiing in your bikini on LinkedIn, but, knock yourself out on Facebook, but just don't be doing, ridiculous things. I mean, there's been a few instances where we haven't put candidates forward because there's been some pretty interesting, shares on their personal Facebook page. Not so much Instagram, I'm not sure why, but more so Facebook. But then people have their own preference over social media platforms these days too. So who knows what they put on Snapchat, and I don't see it.
Do you have a red flag if they don't have a social media platform like outside of LinkedIn?
Sometimes we do. Depends again on the position and the person and the role. But look, sometimes people might want to keep it quiet. There might be other reasons as to why they want to sort of be a little bit anonymous, and that's fine. That's not an issue. We're not stalking them in that sense. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so you generally get a really good feel for somebody when you look at their body language, when you're interviewing them, when you get a feel for who they are and whether or not they're suited to your client, because you've got to remember that the client is the ones that, we're doing our best work on behalf of, meaning we want to find them the ideal fit for their position, but we also want to make the marriage happen between the candidate and the client too, because it's just as important for the candidate to find the right company, all of that. That's how real recruitment works. Yeah. None of this just, shuffling a CV across the desk and hoping like hell somebody will pick it up and someone will get a job. Like that kind of recruitment does my head in.
Or that person is actually that person is the right fit for the job. Like, we've all been in that scenario where we've walked into a role and gone, WTF, this is not the right environment for me whatsoever. What have I done?
Exactly. Yeah. And look, some companies totally blow out of the water what the position is and the culture of the company. And I was involved in one of those before I set up my own businesses. What I was told was no one's business. And it sounded amazing. And, I was getting to travel to Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne every 2 weeks and leaving my 4 kids and husband behind. But at the end of the day, the culture in that company was just so toxic and revolting. And after 6 months, I was like, Barley's, I'm out of here. And you know what? I don't want to be jumping through hoops to be doing what I feel is necessary. You know, I want to be able to sleep straight in bed at night. And that's why I set the Hub and Resourceful Women up.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Now, you did allude earlier to job boards and algorithms. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so when I speak with clients, a lot of the time, career clients, I'll ask them straight up, okay, what job boards are you looking at? And they'll go, oh, Seek, Indeed. And I go, okay, great, they're the two go-tos. The difference between Seek and Indeed is that Seek is a standalone jobs board. So when we and companies place positions on Seek in particular, we choose different fields, and that field is where that job kind of lives. Whereas when we do it within Indeed and Jura is actually owned by Seek, it's a job algorithms board is probably the best way to describe it. So it kind of looks for positions. If I type in, I don't know, environmental science, iron ore, for instance, it's going to push out to all different types of websites, different job boards, and bring in the types of roles that have those keywords in them. So you reach for positions are far greater than on Seek. Okay. And a lot of times people go environmental science, iron ore, mining and resources, WA. So they're limiting this is in Seek. So they're limiting their search parameters. Whereas if you open it up and put all under I'm trying to think of what the name is, but anyhow, the second text box, there's like a description. Yeah. If you just leave that as blank and then you put Western Australia, you're going to find that there's another 50 jobs that you wouldn't have known about. So it's really about utilising search techniques to your ability to be able to find decent roles.
Okay.
Now with Indeed too, it acts again similarly to Indeed, and Seek has this capability where you upload your CV and recruiters and hiring managers can find you. Yeah. Indeed is exactly the same. So from a sourcing perspective, my team utilise Indeed and LinkedIn over Seek, for instance, because it's just got for us, we just find a better calibre of candidate for the types of roles that we're recruiting for.
Wow, I'm finding that surprising because I thought Seek was the go-to for everybody. It's like I didn't realise Indeed was so powerful.
In 7.5 years, we've placed 28 jobs on Seek and that's it. And I've got, clients that spend $30,000, $40,000 a year on Seek. But to me, there's other avenues out there that are far better to find, because you've got to also remember too that, like I said, with so many applications coming through, you've got to sift a lot of the time recruiters, not everyone, because we have got really good applicant tracking systems and software these days that can try and find us the ideal candidates fit for the roles. Yeah. But, sometimes we could get hammered with 200 applications. So that means we've got to scan 200 CVs to see whether or not these guys are suitable or not suitable. Thanks very much, bang, send them an email.
How effective in today's day and age is it just because I remember, and I'm going to show my age again here, but when I graduated from my undergrad degree and there was a few organisations, I wanted to work for the ABC. So I wrote a letter and a covering letter and a CV to the ABC in just let's just see what happens type scenario. Yeah. Is that even useful anymore these days, or is it just going to a bin?
Yeah, look, again, it depends on the industry. A lot of people say, oh, well, I door knock and I've handed my CV around to 12 different places, and that's great. If those people are hiring, because, a lot of the time it's just noise, I suppose. For some companies, it's just, there's another person who wants work and we don't have any work right now. Yeah. So it's all dependent on situations and industries and who's busy and who's not. So
I didn't know if people found that sort of annoying or, just a bit of a go-getter type move. I just thought I'd ask the
Personally, question. Yeah. I mean, we get people sometimes coming up the stairs and knocking on the door and saying, oh, we found you, or we were told to, hand our CV in, and we're more than accommodating. Yep, great, give it here and we'll scan it and we'll put you in the system and, what are you looking for? And we take notes and things like that. But old school recruitment has died a lot, unfortunately. There's still a few of us around. But for a lot of the time, it's just, here's 100 jobs, find 100 bodies, go make it work type scenario. And to me, that's not recruitment. That's not true.
Yeah. I've always found it a bit upsetting when you apply for a job, you speak to the recruiter, they go, yeah, you sound great, and then you don't hear from them. It's like, it's a bit,
It's devastating.
Yeah,
and so we
it
make
hurts.
sure that every person who emails, who texts, who's like, we've got something like 40 messages in Facebook over the weekend for these particular roles that we're recruiting for. Everyone gets sent a personal message, just so that they know, unfortunately, you're not suitable for this particular role, but you're in the database, and let's stay in touch and keep an eye on our Facebook page and, see what else comes in, because next week could be completely different. We might have the ideal job for those people.
Yeah.
So really it's about building a talent community these days too, is how they describe it. And that's really important because, good people know good people, and good people share the information with, people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say that two of my last roles have actually, the job wasn't actually even advertised anywhere. They happened to be speaking to somebody that knew me, and they went, we're looking for somebody to help us with some marketing. Can you? And then the next thing you know, I've walked in and, you get handed, nothing was advertised. I mean, it definitely still happens. You just have to actually market yourself, like you said, when you are looking for a role, and tell everybody you can possibly think of.
And a lot of the time, this is where individuals, they know their capability. They know how good they are at doing certain things, and they've been doing them for years. They just don't know how to put it on paper, and they just don't know how to sell themselves. And that's sort of where we come in and strip it all back to, okay, well, have you thought about this? And, depending again on the role and the responsibilities. But for instance, we do a lot of mechanical trade CVs and bits and pieces, and when I speak to the guys and girls in that space, it's like, okay, have you worked on these machines? Have you done this? Have you worked, FIFO? What were your rosters? All of that information is really important to a recruiter, because they can go, okay, well, they've already worked a 2-in-1 roster. They've been FIFO to the Pilbara. They understand that, how hot it is to work and live up there. They've already worked on Komatsu and Hitachi and Caterpillar and Liebherr machines. Okay, they'll be ideal for this particular client. And so that again is where we help. We help individuals, and then we're helping companies by finding the right talent and making sure that talent is a good fit within organisations as well.
Look, I mean, we've already had one mining boom, so I'm going to move on to talking about specifically mining and resources recruitment, because, we've had one boom. What's going to happen in the next 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months? We're all still trying to figure that out. But, I am reading news reports saying that, WA will have another sort of mining boom, because what else are we going to be able to do? So what's your advice to people that have recently lost their job and they're now going, you know what, maybe I should apply for a cleaner role or a catering role or something like that in the mining sector?
Yeah, they're your entry roles right there. You've got to start from scratch, and well, not everybody has to start from scratch, but that's how I started. I started working in a wet mess, which was a bar. That was my introduction. 13 weeks away, 3 weeks home on a piddly little mine site out of Marble Bar. But it was such an amazing experience, and it's like I said, it's what got me into the industry, and I could never imagine myself being in another industry other than mining and resources. So where are we going from here? We're going back to a casualisation and a contract roster, and a contract casualisation and a contract workforce. So there will be very few perm positions around. There'll be 6 and 12-month contract positions, which are slightly semi-permanent, and there'll be a lot of casual contract roles, shutdown roles, that sort of thing. Shutdowns have already been pushed back again, and we saw that in sort of 2014, 2015, where companies were making the decision to not conduct their shutdowns as regular as what they would like to and or need to. And again, that's a cost-saving measure, and, it saves across the board, not just from a maintenance perspective, but obviously for labour. So the future of mining is longer rosters, which again, as an industry, we've been fighting so long for family-friendly rosters for so many of the different sort of industries within our sector. And that is going to change dramatically. I mean, like I mentioned, hubby's been on leave since the end of February, and he sort of took that in the beginning of January. So before all of this transpired, and he doesn't go back until mid-May. But he goes from an 8 and 6 roster, which we're quite used to a 2 and 2 roster, which we've never ever done. So in that short time, we're changing. And when things did sort of start to nosedive a little bit, sort of 2015, 2016, he was asked to go to an 8-6-4-3. So he was home for 2 weekends, and then he was away. So he worked 8 days. He was home for 6. He worked away for 4. He was home for 3, and then he was away for 8. So it was a really unusual sort of roster, again, for us to get our heads around, because we'd always done 8 and 6 when he started. Because prior to that, we were residential, living in mining towns for 14 years. So whatever roster went, we had to do, but we lived there. So he was home every night. It was a different
He was home every night. So, yeah. I mean, I guess it does raise a really good point. Like, it's all well and good to go, let's, we're now in this financial situation, or I've lost my job, let's go and I'll go take this cleaning job or this, this intro role into a mining sector. But then suddenly you're not at home every night. You're not tucking the kids in. You're not seeing your partner every night. Or you're just not seeing, for single people, you're not seeing your mates or your family. What's some of the hints and tips that you would give to these people that are now looking at,
We're so fortunate in this day and age that we have the technology that we do. I mean, when I was living 13 and 3 up in Marble Bar, I had one coin telephone box that there would be 20 of us lining up to call our families. So you can imagine what that situation looked like. Whereas now, we've got FaceTime, we've got Zoom, we can call, we can text, we can do so many different things. I think we're really, really fortunate that in comparison to days gone by with the technology that we have. And I think, again, look, FIFO and mining and resources isn't for everyone. And if it's not for you, then you tried and you probably just need to leave it there. There is so much support out there. There's so many different FIFO particular, businesses and companies that help around mental health and that sort of thing, which is great. And there's a lot of support on Facebook groups too for partners and their children as well. And that was never a thing, back in the day.
Because I have days, I'm sure I've seen some photos where my friends, their partners were working away and they got flown up for the weekend to come and, family days. I mean, I thought they were amazing.
Yeah,
sorry, that is
fantastic.
That is my son. That is my son in the background changing a game on his PlayStation. My apologies again for. I told him to sit still, but what are you going to do?
That's why I came to the office, because I might have a mastiff dog and 3 kids kind of walking in, so it's all good.
Sorry, I interrupted. So there's family days,
so we have been to family days before, but remembering as well that our kids grew up in mining towns, so they're used to seeing dump trucks and loaders and graders and trains and, all the fun stuff. Whereas the kids that have only ever grown up with a parent that's been fly in, fly out, they don't know until they get up to site and they see these big machines and they're like in awe. Yeah. And it's look, I think from a company's perspective, it's a really good thing to continue to do. Obviously not in this current climate until we're over this little hiccup that we all find ourselves in, but it's such a good and positive thing for wives and kids and partners and even parents. Some people that are single take their parents up there and say, hey mum, this is the kind of machines that I work on. It's great. It's fantastic.
Well, I've actually last Easter I was at the pit. I went to Cal and I saw the pit for the first time since 1986 was the last time I saw the pit. It had grown a fair bit since I'd seen it back then. But it was just fascinating to go and just how it all works. And
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I found Cal a bit depressing, to be honest. There's just
nothing much there.
Yeah, the whole architecture of the place was beautiful, but just you could see where it was and now where it is. It was,
Interestingly enough, Kalgoorlie probably has the most. Like when people come to me and say, where should I go? Should I move to Tom Price and try and get a job? I'm like, no, don't move to Tom Price, move to Kalgoorlie. Because Kalgoorlie and surrounds have, so many thousands of jobs available, from starting off in labouring or truck driving around town to, it just takes you to cement yourself in one spot and get comfortable and then go from there. So
and it's
for
also
me,
not that far from Perth. Like it's
well, that's right. And
yeah.
it's got everything. It's got decent shops, and it's got and you can go for trips for an hour, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you can visit a place where you've never ever been before, and you can enjoy a picnic and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I personally love Kalgoorlie. My mum ran the Leonora Motel when I was in my sort of 16, 17, and I used to love going up to the goldfields and hanging out in my school holiday break and, just sussing out the culture and everything, hanging around the wall area.
Yeah, so I went out to that place where they had the shoot up. Can't remember what it's called.
Orabanda?
Yes, went to Orabanda. Like, I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. And yes, I will confess, I did the brothel tour because, you can't not go there.
I've never done the brothel tour. I wanted to, but I haven't had a chance. I haven't been there for, I've literally gone in there to visit clients and then left again. So.
Did you hear about because obviously the strippers and stuff can't, because all the pubs have closed. And so now the guys can actually order food and then order the girls to go pick the food up for them and tell them what to wear, and then they'll have social distancing food delivery, and they can still – I just thought that was – and I think they called it boobers or something, or I just thought that
something briefly last week. But this is how we all have to change tact, isn't it? We've had to do it overnight. So same with applying for new jobs as well. You just have to own it.
Yeah, really. I think you just got to be authentic and I think right now people are just. You just got to be honest. Like, this is the situation I found myself in, and and now I need to find some work, because I think the two words job security just don't exist in the same way they used to 20 or 30 years ago.
God, no. Gone are the days where you work for a company and you get the gold watch at the end of 40 years. It's unless that's the type of employee that you are, and I have a few oldie friends from Panawanika and Parabadoo that are in that sort of space, but. Yeah, and a lot of the time too, I think from a personal growth perspective, you want more. We've got access to so much now that we didn't have, like online learning and training and things like that. That I think from a personal perspective, we kind of get, and I know this happened for me, I was like, well, I want more. I don't want to just be doing recruitment anymore, which is when I got involved in career development, and then I got involved in Harrison, and I was forever sort of upskilling and training myself for myself, not for anybody else other than me and my family, really. But when I was at school, God, I hated high school. I couldn't wait to get out. Tried to leave in year 10, went back till year 12, and then I was like, right, what do I do now? Yeah. So, I never would have dreamed that after 10 years in hospitality, I'd find myself in the mining and resources sector and work in recruitment and career development.
But the thing is, now there's so many uni courses that are completely online. I mean, I'm doing my entire master's degree online. I haven't seen a lecturer ever, never step foot on a campus. You just do all your research, all your lectures are online. It can be done, and it does give you that flexibility to be able to do it when it suits you. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't want to put pressure on people. I mean, right now, keeping food on the table, keeping a roof over your head is really people's number one responsibility. And look, if going out and doing some extra learning is just what you can't do right now, like, stuff it. Like, it doesn't matter. But this is a unique opportunity, I think, for a lot of people to just take a breath and go, is this what I want to be doing?
Absolutely. Yep. And there's so many free resources out there too, Lynn, so many free resources, and tap into those free resources and tap into your network and have those conversations. Because again, people might be working in different industries, and someone, one of their friends might have a vested interest in that industry. You just need to have a conversation. We used to do that over coffee and a beer, but we can't do that right now. So we can have virtual coffees and virtual beers and virtual, wine nights. But I think it's really important to stay connected, and to, if it's been in the back of your mind, it's interesting because a lot of the women that come to me for coaching, they say, oh, God, I've been thinking about doing this for years, but I've got kids and they're my responsibility and blah, 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 blah. And look, that can be the case. It was the case for me as well, but I still managed to have a career, and I managed to work it around Ricky's roster. And I've always been career driven. And work for me is really, really important. So this whole staying in bed all day type scenario just doesn't kind of cut it. I give it a good burl every now and then, and I'm like, oh my God, just get me in the office. Like, just keep me busy. I like being busy.
I think now it's also a really good time to, if you do have somebody so if you are looking at going into mining and recruitment, or you are trying to get into marketing, or, whatever the role is that you're thinking of getting in, like, now's a great time to reach out to people that you're seeing doing the job that you want to do, or working in the industry that you want to work in, and going, just send them a message on LinkedIn. Go, look, you don't know me, but I want to know more about what you do. And I'm just finding people they have a lot more time than they did beforehand, and they want to help. Like,
they're a lot more giving at the moment. And definitely, even if they're not in your network, but there's somebody that resonates with exactly what you said, with those types of roles or industries or whatever. And what's the worst thing I can say? No, sorry, I'm too busy, or no, sorry, I don't have time. That's not as bad. Try again.
There'll be other people. There'll be other people that are in similar roles. But I think from a careers development perspective for individuals, just make sure that you are really targeting. Don't send recruiters a retail CV if you're going for a position in healthcare, for instance. Even if you have had retail experience. Look, we've got clients and candidates that have done a myriad of different roles and throughout their career, and the thing is that they need to target it for the position that they're actively applying for, and prove not prove, that's probably the wrong word, but relate it back to the responsibilities of the position that they're going for, so that I can see that they're a candidate worth considering. Yeah. So what you're saying is, if they have worked in hospitality and they've managed people and they've run rosters and they've done stock supply and all those sorts of things, but they want to get into healthcare, just use them as the examples, even though they may not have done it specifically in a healthcare environment.
Yeah. And, I'm willing to obtain qualifications and certificates. I'm willing for this to be my new career pathway. I want to transition from this industry to this industry, and this is why. Yeah.
And now's a great time to invest a bit of time and effort into really looking into what industries you want to transition into be
mindful too that there's some positions that are, and some industries that are going to be null and void. But personally, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, I think that Australia, we've sort of kicked ourselves in the butt with losing so much of our manufacturing ourselves, and I think that's going to come back on board in the next few years, fingers crossed, because we're all going to be really, we don't want to rely on other countries to be doing our manufacturing, because God knows what's going to happen if we continue down that path. So that's another industry that I think is going to flourish. Agriculture's going crazy. We don't have the backpacker numbers to be able to pick fruit during seasons and do bits and pieces that they normally do. So again, people might just have to transition into a new industry for a certain amount of time to be able to, as we mentioned, put food on the table. But they might gain additional skills by doing that.
No. And it also shows their versatility, and they're willing to adapt to, new environments, training. Yeah, I mean, these are all things that, potential employers are looking for.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Dani, thank you so much for your time today. I learned a lot.
Oh,
I know I want to come and do one of these Harrison assessments and see what I really should be doing with my life.
Oh, that's hilarious.
See if I've wasted the last 45 years of my life. But look, thanks so much for your time. Look, and again, we will be having your contact details. So if anybody would like to get in contact with you about doing a Harrison's assessment, or like talk to you further about what you do or getting into mining, they'll be able to contact you directly. And thanks again to Russell for doing his thing at his end. Always appreciated. Guys, enjoy your Easter, what's left of it. And Dani, I'm sure we'll catch up soon for a virtual wine.
We will. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for having me.